Hello everyone and welcome back to our countdown to Christmas. Today is the 4th of December and we've got another 2 units that are from the Necron Codex that we're going to pit up against each other. We're going to talk about their datasheet comparisons, some advantages and disadvantages of both the units, and then I'm going to give my opinion on which unit I actually would prefer if we were to make a list around that said unit. So don't forget guys to make sure you're commenting down below in order to make your entry for our giveaway. There will be a link in the description or in the top right of the screen now, which will take you to the video with all the rules and all that kind of stuff in order to enter that giveaway. So today's video is going to be talking about the Canoptek Wraiths versus the Lychguard. So one of these units of course is a fast attack option and the other one is an elite option, so there are some comparisons to them but there are also some differences, so we're going to go through those today. First of all, there's a slight difference in the points cost. The Canoptek Wraiths cost 10 points more at a minimum because there are upgrade options. The Lychguard are only 25 points, the Wraiths are 35 points. However, you can take a minimum unit of 3 Wraiths, which will come to a total of 105 points at base cost. Whereas you need to take 5 Lychguard models as a minimum, which comes to a total of 125 points. So even though the Canoptek Wraiths are more expensive, at a bare minimum you will be spending more points if you take Lychguard. Right, so let's talk about their datasheet and the differences between them both. Now the Canoptek Wraiths have actually got 3 statistics that are better than the Lychguard, and the Lychguard have got 3 stats that are better than the Wraiths. So in terms of the movement to begin, the Wraiths are moving at 12-inch movement, whereas the Lychguard are only moving at 5. The Canoptek Wraiths then have 3 wounds as opposed to the Lychguard's 2, and they've also got 4 attacks as opposed to the Lychguard's 3. However, when you look at the Lychguard's profile, they're better with the weapon skill hitting on a 3+, they're better with the ballistic skill, although they don't actually need the ballistic skill, do they? But it is a 3+ if you did require it for any sort of abilities, very unlikely. And then of course their strength is strength 5, so slightly stronger, and that will impact their melee weapons. So it's kind of hard to split that one if I'm honest with you, they've both got 3 apiece. Depends on where you want to go with these units and what you're trying to achieve with them. I'm going to stay on the fence with this one and call that one a tie. Now as for the unique abilities, well first of all the Canoptek Wraiths have got that Wraith Form ability which is really good. They've got that 4+ invulnerable save and they're able to move through models and terrain as if they were not there. When they're moving at 12 inches already, that's going to be really handy. Even the bigger terrain pieces or large models that are in a large unit, they can literally skip straight through them. Now that's what the Canoptek Wraiths have, but the Lychguard have got their own unique ability called the Guardian Protocols. So it basically allows them to have a lookout sir ability for nearby noble units, and you only need to have one single model in order to do it. So let's say you've got a unit of 10 of them and you've lost 9 of those models, you've only got 1 left. That lookout sir ability will still apply to your noble model. Used to be a lot better, they used to be able to not actually target the nobles at all, but hey, that's still what it is. So that's the unique abilities for these 2 units. Personally, I think I prefer the Canoptek Wraiths ability more. Like I mentioned, the Lychguard's ability used to be a lot better, but since they nerfed it, I think it's less useful. Right, let's move on to the weapons. Starting off with those Canoptek Wraiths, well, they've got 2 options. Either you're taking the Vicious Claws, which are strength 6, minus 2 AP, 2 damage, or you're taking the Whip Boils, which are strength 4, minus 1 AP, and 1 damage, but instead of having 4 attacks, you have 8 attacks, so really useful against Horde units. Whereas on the other hand, the Lychguard models, they've got the Hyperphase Swords, strength 6, minus 3 AP, and 1 damage, but with this weapon you get to take that Dispersion Shield, which is really important because you get that 4+ invulnerable save, as well as a 2+ armor save. So even though we're talking about the weapons here, that's going to really add to the resiliency of the unit. Now if you wanted to sacrifice that bit of resiliency by removing the shields, you can then also remove the sword and take the War Scythe, which is strength 7, minus 4 AP, and 2 damage. So for me they are better than the Vicious Claws, they've got better AP, better strength as well, and much easier to buff with other things such as stratagems, the Disruption Field stratagem for example, maybe the Command Protocol of Hungry Void. It's much easier to get to that magic number of strength 8, whereas the Vicious Claws on the Canoptek Wraiths, they probably need a couple of different buffs. Maybe it's the Hungry Void from the Command Protocols, maybe it's the Disruption Fields on top of that, so that's the Command Protocol and a stratagem, costing you a command point just to get it to that magic number of strength 8. So personally, I think I prefer the War Scythes in this situation. However, you are sacrificing that shield with the invuln save, which is going to cost you a lot in resiliency. Now the Canoptek Wraiths have also got some range attacks if you wanted to pay the extra points. They can take the Particle Casters, which have 5 points per model, and they have 12-inch range, pistol 2, strength 6, no AP, 1 damage, really good against toughness 3, and units with a low armor save because there's no AP there. Alternatively, you can use the Transdimensional Beamers for 10 points per model. Now these are 12-inch range, assault 1, strength 4, minus 3 AP and 3 damage. So quite tasty in the AP and damage department, although it does get quite pricey if you've got a unit of 6 of these, all taking the Transdimensional Beamers. But these are optional, of course. You don't have to actually take any range attacks, but you do have the option of taking them. Whereas Lychguard, they've got nothing in terms of range attacks. Next we're going to talk about unique synergy for each of the units. Now this is just unique synergy here. They're of course both core units, so we're not going to talk about all the My Will Be Done and all that kind of stuff. This is unique. So first of all, the Chronomancers for the Lychguard, but the ones that are carrying the War Scythes, not the ones with the shields. They don't need a Chronomancer, because the Chronomancer gives them a 5+ invulnerable save and a rerollable charge roll. There'd be no point putting that Chronomancer on the guys with the shields because they've already got a 4+ invuln, haven't they? And the other unique synergy with the Lychguard is an Infantry Noble, in fact. Because of that bodyguard ability, as we already mentioned, but also they've got their own stratagem, which is called the Eternal Protector stratagem. If they're within close proximity of a noble, they get an additional attack, something that the Canoptek Wraiths can't do. Now speaking of the Canoptek Wraiths, well, you've got the Technomancer with the Canoptek Control Node for a +1 to their hit rolls, and you can also take a failsafe Overcharger for an additional attack. So that's their way of getting an additional attack, I guess. Other synergy includes the new Army of Renown, which is the Cult of the Cryptek. Because they've got the Canoptek keyword, they are eligible to be chosen as part of that army, whereas the Lychguard models are of course not Canoptek, so they cannot be chosen. So that's the unique synergy. What about the overall purpose for both of these units? For me, the Canoptek Wraiths have got, well, a lot of purposes in fact. First of all, they're very quick, so they're able to tie up models, especially units that want to fire at our guys. They're also able to get onto an objective really fast because they're moving at 12 inches, sometimes 13 inches with a Relentless March aura, and they can dish out a reasonable amount of damage. Now the Lychguard on the other hand, they are much slower, so they're not going to be going up the board as fast unless you're using a Veil of Darkness relic perhaps, but they're going to be defending a certain area of the battlefield. Maybe it's your own deployment zone, maybe it's somewhere in the no man's land. If you're taking the swords and shields, they're going to bunker down and literally defend an area. If they are taking the War Scythes, however, as mentioned, the Veil of Darkness relic with the Chronomancer, throw them at the board, get them into a fight. Now once they have destroyed a unit, they aren't moving as quick as the Canoptek Wraiths, so they can get kind of stuck for a few turns to get into the next position. But yeah, I think I do prefer them with the swords and shields as opposed to the War Scythes. If you wanted to go slicing and dicing, you're probably better off with the Canoptek Wraiths, although they're not hitting as hard as say something else like a Scorpion Destroyer perhaps, but we're not talking about those today. So let's get on to the advantages and disadvantages of both of these units. Starting off with the Canoptek Wraiths, advantages are as follows. So they're much quicker, of course, they're moving 12 inches. That gives you a lot more flexibility in what you're going to be doing with them and where they're going to be going. They're of course 3 wounds apiece, whereas the Lychguard models are only 2 wounds. Then as far as the unit cost is concerned, as a minimum unit, it's going to be cheaper. Okay, they are 35 points per model, but you only need 3 of them as a minimum unit. They've of course got that fallback and shoot and fallback and charge ability, which is really handy. It allows them to fight first in the fight phase most of the time, or to select a complete different target. The next and most important advantage of the Canoptek Wraiths is the fact that they've always got a 4+ invulnerable save, regardless of what war gear you're taking with them. Whether it's the Vicious Claws or the Whip Coils, you're still getting that 4+ invuln. They've got more attack space with 4 attacks, potentially 8 attacks with the Whip Coils, and we've already mentioned that Cult of the Cryptek as an option for these Wraiths. And finally, something else we didn't really mention in this video is the Enslaved Protector stratagem. For 1 command point, they can heroically intervene as if they were a character. Now that's the advantages. What about the disadvantages of taking the Canoptek Wraiths over your Lychguard? Well, they're only toughness 4, not toughness 5. Even though they've always got the in-1 save, strength 5 weapons are going to really hurt these guys because they're wounded on 3s. They're only hitting on 4s as opposed to a 3+ because they are Canoptek. Okay, you can take a Technomancer with a control node, but that Technomancer isn't able to keep up as good with the Canoptek Wraiths because it's only moving at 5 inches. Because he hasn't got the Canoptek Cloak. Something else is the fact that they're not infantry models, they are beasts. Easy to forget that they're not infantry models, so they're not going to be doing things such as R&D, raise the banners. Thankfully though, they can still do ancient machineries because they've got the Canoptek keyword, as well as the core keyword in fact. And finally, they're competing with the Canoptek Scarabs in our fast attack slots, which I think is probably our best unit in fact in the whole of the Codex. So if you are playing a smaller game where you're using a patrol detachment for example, you've only got 2 slots there. And yeah, you need to fit your Scarabs in. Maybe you want your Ophidian Destroyers in. Unless you've got multiple detachments, you're going to really struggle fitting these guys in. Now as for the Lychguard in terms of advantages, so hitting on 3+ as opposed to a 4+, that's going to be really handy. Very easy to put that to a 2+ with the My Will Be Done ability. They've then got toughness 5 as opposed to toughness 4, so they're much more resilient. Especially when you're pairing that with the Dispersion Shields for a 2+ armor save and that 4+ invulnerable save. That makes them really tanky, really resilient. Yes, you are sacrificing the strength of your weapon, but yeah, it depends on what you want to go. You've got a bit more flexibility with this unit. And I think they've just got the better melee weapon if you were to select the War Scythes. They're an infantry model as opposed to a beast model, so therefore you can be doing those objectives that require you to be infantry. They've got the Eternal Protector stratagem as mentioned, so they're going to get an additional attack when they're nearby noble models, and just synergy with nobles in general for that Guardian's Protocol ability. That's the advantages. What about the disadvantages? There are a couple here. First of all, they are slow. They're going at 5 inches. Okay, you can boost that to 6 inches with the Relentless March aura, but without a Veil of Darkness relic, yeah, it's going to take them a lot of time to get up the board to where they want to go. But to be honest, most of the time they are just going up to the no man's land and parking up for the night. Finally, the swords and the scythes do not combine. I really wish that you could take a war scythe with the dispersion shields. That would be really cool, and I'd rather pay the extra points to do that, but at this moment in time, that is not a valid option. So that's all the comparisons for the Canoptek Wraiths and the Lychguard. Now it comes down to what unit do I prefer and why. If you would have asked me this in the summer, I think I would have said the Lychguard models. I was getting really into them. I was using them in most of my games, but currently I'm actually playing a lot more with the Canoptek Wraiths. I mean, I have been playtesting the Cult of the Cryptek Army of Renown, so I've been using them in those kind of games. But even in general, having objectives secured with, say, Nihilak Dynasty or Eternal Conquerors, having them on a fast, resilient unit with the in-bun save, I think is really handy. So for me today, I'm going to be giving this one to the Canoptek Wraiths. So guys, let me know down in the comments below which unit you would choose and why. That will give you an entry into the giveaway, as long as you are subscribed and liking the video, of course. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.